Okay, so here we go. Now what I did also here, I just kind of try to block in a little bit of the outline, very lightly, right? Very lightly, outline of the area occupied by the leaves, right? So just to have an idea overall of the distribution. Let's say this is an ash, right? Something like that. Actually, it could be a maple, but all right. So let's see. Let's start finding the color for the bark. So believe it or not, the bark is almost never brown, right? It tends to be a grayish color, brownish grayish. It really depends, right? So start blocking in a little bit of the washes for the bark. This branch, imagine, is a little bit behind, right? And so I'm gonna have it in a kind of a subdued color, right? Subdued kind of violetishy gray, right? And maybe the light comes from here, so this area here, the bark will be lighter, right? And then when now I'm using a soft press, so see what happened when I use the brush instead of with the point like this, I flat and like that. It creates a texture. It creates a texture. So really, you want to practice learning using the brush in different ways because you're gonna achieve very different results, right? So now that is going to be even more removed. So maybe I'm gonna make it even a little more violet, right? But now I want to start paying attention to areas that maybe are covered by the leaves. So I'm not going to put paint everywhere. I'm going to kind of imagine where are the leaves going to be because then I don't paint the branch. But I need to know where the branches are so I can create some sort of consistency in the direction of the branches when they disappear and reappear, disappear and reappear because hidden by the leaves, right? So now I'm going to try to get a little bit more chromatic color, right? And you see, this is kind of a brownish color, but not the classic super, you know, really brown in your face kind of, brown kind of color, right? Kind of a little bit more subdued, right? Okay, so this is the first wash. As you've seen, we can go back, intervene with more washes later on. So this branch is still even darker because it's going to be maybe really on the other side of the branch. The light coming from here, it's hidden. Also from the other, all the leaves, etc. So it doesn't catch much sun. So I can make it a little bit more, a little bit cooler, right? A little bit cooler. So okay, so let's try to include a little bit of not a couple of brush strokes, and then I stop. Just a couple more, right? A couple more, because it's kind of drying up here, and I kind of like it. They kind of like the level of wetness of the paint now, and you kind of I can block in a little bit more of details and make the paint kind of blend with the previous layer, right? So clearly now on this side in here I could add darker and darker value. Let's say, for example, this is the broken stump, right? This is the shadow, the shading from the upper branch here, right? So maybe I can make it darker like that. Right? So even if it's brown, right, or kind of grayish, it doesn't mean that it has to be a dull, boring color. You can have, or uniform color. You can have all these variations of color, or gray and reddish and brownish, subdued colors, right? And make the branch, make the trunk kind of interesting, right? You know. So now, let's see. Let's say it's fall, right? And the leaves of this tree are going to be nice and beautiful and orange. So I'm gonna start blocking a few areas of colors here, right? First big area. I don't want to get too much in detail, right? I had a maple where I used to live before. We had this beautiful, beautiful maple right out of my window. I could see it from my studio, and it was just so beautiful and happy. In the fall, it would make these really, really gorgeous red, yellow, orange leaves, and it was just such a beautiful sight. But of course, you know, it would shed a lot of leaves. And my neighbor at the time was hated plants. He cut off all the plants in his yard and in front of his house. Really cut them off, you know. And I think, I mean, he was kind of a cranky guy, right? And his backyard looked like I don't know, like a golf course, not even like a pool, like where you play pool with the billiard pool, right? It's a green, flat, crew-cut grass, right? Concentration camp for vegetation. So my tree would shed a lot of leaves, and he hated it because, you know, some they went into his property. So, so you see what I'm saying now here, what I'm doing here? I am kind of blocking in. I don't need to do this everywhere, but you see how I'm going over, in some cases here, over the branches which I left as just the pencil drawing as a trace, because later I can go back in and fill in the color, whatever I decided the branches, for example, they are going to be visible, right? And when they're not going to be visible, I just leave them alone, right? So I don't know if I'll be able to do the whole thing. I just want to show you how to do it, and then how to approach it, one way of approaching it, and then you guys can fill in the rest, right? So anyway, so this guy eventually, so one day I was working from home most of the time. I'm working for, Illustrator, Scientific American, and all these, magazines of sciences and books, etc. So I was working from home, enjoying my beautiful trees, and I see a crew from town that stops at the front of the tree with this gigantic truck and a tree shredder, right? The shredder. So I think, what are they doing, right? And they start looking around the tree and measuring, and then looking and talking, and then they pull out a chainsaw and say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's going on here, right?" So I go out and I say, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, we're cutting down the tree." I said, "Why? What? You called us. You called us to cut down the tree." And he said, "No, I didn't. No, I didn't call you." And so we chatted for a while. It turns out that the neighbor called the town and pretended to be me. See, now it's funny, right? Pretending to be me, saying that I needed to cut down the tree. Would you please come and cut the tree? So I said, no. If you want to trim it, just as a compromise, but don't cut it down. There's nothing wrong with the tree. It's just I like it. So they did not cut it down. Eventually, later on, yes, because I asked them to do it. Because eventually, later, it was hollowed out by not hollowed out, but attacked by carpenter bees, carpenter ants, and then it became dangerous. So, but that's the neighbors, right? Right. So anyway, so okay. So now I want to imagine this also, that we're gonna have some leaves, right, on the back in there that maybe are going to be shaded, but for now I mean are gonna have a different color because they are in the shade, but for now I will concentrate on just a few leaves here and there, right? And this, what I'm doing now, is just a pattern of the main volume, the main mass of leaves, right? So I could have left some space also here, unpainted here. See that, where I could have put leaves in here in front of the branch. I didn't, but I could do it here. I could do it here, right over here, like that, right? I'm gonna do here, because clearly you don't gonna have mostly this all empty space in front of where you see the whole trunk going on like that, right? The leaves are gonna be overall over the whole area here. So but I'm putting down all these colors in here. Again, the lightest color, and later I'm going to maybe darken it with some orange and red, and eventually I will have to figure out a way to include also the shading, right? The shading of the of the leaves that are deep down and darker, right? So if let me see, right? I could in fact start getting some orange in there, right? And so that I don't have a monotonous yellow, and I could start doing so, thinking already in terms of which part is hit directly by the light, for example here, and which part is a little bit shaded. I'm going to make it a little bit darker like that, lower, right? So I start creating a sense of volume, right, in those leaves, right? Here. And of course, later on, I'm going to lower the chroma of that orange, for example, right? Because so I'm going from a very highly chromatic cadmium orange to a little bit more subdued, color, right? Orange. Maybe I'm gonna make it, add some violet to it. So I'm gonna use the complementary colors to lower the chroma. So actually, let's see if I can put some leaves in the background here that are I'm gonna add some violet to these leaves in here, so that maybe they will feel distant, right? Less chromatic and more distant. So let's see. Let's assume there's a bunch of leaves on this side here, right, that are a little bit more. No, it's not chromatic. No, it's still a little bit too warm, right? A little bit more of. Let's see, violet. Yeah, a little bit better. Not much, but. So now you can see, I can imagine I have some leaves on the other side in the shade that are not catching too much sunlight, right? And in fact, I could put some also down here like this, right? So now what I want to do, I want to leave this alone, right? Let it dry. And let it dry a little bit, and then I want to start another tree. Right, so today is going to be double whammy, right? Because the last day, and I want to start another tree, and in honor of the holidays, we're gonna make we're gonna paint a conifer, right? Like a Christmas tree. So let's see. So we start similar to what I've done before. Like basically, we need a faint trace of the tree, right? Just block in just to have an idea of where to put it. You might see or might not see this, but the conifer is gonna be like that, like this, right? And then let me move this, otherwise I'm gonna mess it up. There you go. And then then a generic conifer is not going to be any specific, like a fir, like Douglas fir or Norwegian fir or whatever, right? But a generic conifer, right? So, what is a pencil? Here, it should be okay. Maybe. So, blocking in maybe the general outline very quickly, just to visualize it, right? To see how much space it's going to take, right? And I'm sure you can go out and take a picture of a fir from a park, and then copy that, right? Right. So the lower branches in the conifer tend sometimes they are kind of dried up, broken up, etc. Right? So I generally need the generic shape of this conifer, right? And then what I can do now, I can start blocking in the greenish color of my Christmas tree all over the place, right? Oops, I've dipped the paint in the tea. All right, not the first time. Luckily, I have coffee there. Okay, so conifer, nice green. No, come on. All right, let's get it from the box. All right, I'm going to add some. Yeah, I want a glowing green. So I'm going to start with a. A yellow mixed with with a sap green. I'm get the sap green out of the box now because, and then we can now start blocking in overall the shape of the tree, right? Because I have now the outlines in here, and that's all I need to do. Once I understand the pattern of movement of the branches, I can kind of, you know, figure it out and improvise as I go. If creating some sort of ideal Christmas tree, right? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna leave some space here and there for the decorations, right? I'm gonna put some nice Christmas ornaments in there, right? So I'm gonna make sure that I don't have all green here. I'm gonna put some nice little Christmas decoration and see what happens, right? All right, so here now I have these branches that kind of do this. They come out in, it really depends, it's a fir of a pine, whatnot, but they could come out like this, right? And then have these hanging leaves out like a cone like that, right? Or they could be more like this, right? Here and here. Really, whichever might be the case, you want to see. So this is more like a Norwegian fir or something like that, right? I have a beautiful one right back behind me. The last one that survived the hurricane, the last hurricane, and it's beautiful, but they come down like, you know. So anyway, so you see what I'm saying now? I try now to create all these little branches, right? And without, I leave some empty space in between, but I don't want to be too specific. I just need a first trace of the outline and where all the leaves are going to be, right? Here. And I'm gonna do this all over the place. So I could at this point decide to do something decide the direction of the sun coming down from this way, right? And then put the more chromatic color here, and then skip here and don't put the color here, but put the color of the shadow here, right? Or just put this green all over, and then later darken this area here, putting a layer, a glaze of darker color over the green, right? So whichever way is fine. Really depends on, you know, on you. But let me show you what I mean. I mean that in this case, in here, I could get in this area here a already darker area, which I could start doing here. Let's do it here, right? So I could start doing here. And as if the sun comes from here, this area here is going to have not a lot of this dark area here. But as I move down, this is going to be bigger and bigger, increasingly. The shadow, the area of shadow is going to be increasingly big, right? So it's going to take me a while to do this. So now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to, and you've seen what to do, right? So I maintain a pattern that respects the general characteristic of the leaves of your tree, where they are more like this, right? Or more like this, stemming out, going up and stemming out. Look at your tree, see what how the branches are organized, and then fill in the overall pattern of the tree patiently. You see it patiently, right? With I would do this at this point. Two colors: a highly chromatic, a more chromatic color, lighter than the final color, because you can intervene on this with more colors. And on the shadow mask, on the shadow area, you're going to lower the chromatic green, making it like a bluish, violetish green, right? And start implying at the volume of the foreground. So also consider that as you get down in here, this area here will also be darker in the frame, meaning very little shadow mass in here, increases in here, and then down here is going to be more evident, because of course it's under the main volume of the tree, right? So the trunk of the tree will be clearly dark in the shade, so I wouldn't make it brown, but I would make it for now grayish, right? And then some dead branches that you might see right here. So work on this now. Work on this. I would go out, take a picture of the tree, or find it online. You find everything online now, right? And then create a pattern of a conifer. Let me get the outline of this loosely, right? More or less like this, right? And then fill it in patiently with these two light mask and shadow mask. And then I'm going to come back, right?